Hello. So I'm going to share a book with you called Abe's Fish. It's a boyhood tale of Abraham Lincoln. Abe woke to the sound of the cabin door opening and closing. He jumped up, pulled on his pants, and ran outside. "Where are you going?" Pa asked when he heard Abe approaching. "With you," Abe answered, trying to sound natural like this was what he did every day. Pa stopped. He put his axe on the ground. Abe stood beside it, breathing hard. "Go ahead then," Pa offered. "Go ahead and lift it." With both hands, Abe grasped the handle. He pulled up, up, up until his wrists burned. The axe was too heavy. With one hand, Pa lifted the axe. With his other hand, he gently squeezed Abe's shoulder. "Maybe next time," said Pa, and disappeared into the trees. Abe picked up a rock and tossed it hard. There was no need to hurry back to the cabin. Abe was sure he'd be spending another boring afternoon picking berries with his sister Sarah. But Ma surprised him. "Why don't you take your fishing pole over to Knob Creek? See if you can catch us a fish for dinner." Abe did not have to be asked twice. Compared to picking berries, fishing was grown-up work. Besides, after several days of turnip soup and little green apples, a fish dinner sounded mighty fine. It was half a mile down the road to the best spot. Abe baited his hook, dropped his line, and settled himself on the bank. Fish, fish, fish. Abe turned the word over and over again in his mind. Fish, fish, fish. He whispered to the water. Abe loved words. He loved speaking them out loud. He loved writing them with a stick in the dirt. And on the days he went to school with Sarah, Abe loved reading them too. Tug, 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 tug. Abe tightened his grip. He remembered what Pa had said. "Hold steady and pull at just the right time." Abe held steady, and when his hands felt the full weight of the fish, he yanked the pole upward, swinging the line behind him. "Gotcha!" he cried. Abe had one worm left. He rolled it in a damp leaf and, smiling to himself, put it in his pocket. A nice surprise for Sarah's pillow tonight. The late day sun warmed Abe's back and deepened the red of a ripe red apple that hung by the roadside just out of reach. Abe tried 3 times to poke it down with a stick, but the apple refused to drop. "I wish I was tall," he thought. Reluctantly, Abe walked on, his shadow stretching longer and longer before him, his fat fish swinging at his side. Already he could smell it cooking over the fire. He could see Ma's smile and feel Pa's pride. Even Sarah would have to admit Abe had done well. Then all of a sudden, someone was coming. The man had a rifle. He walked quickly. "Soldier," Abe whispered. Last spring, when a group of soldiers passed the schoolhouse, Abe asked, "Who are they?" "Americans heading north to fight the British," the teacher explained, interrupting the lesson. "Why?" Abe persisted. "For freedom," the teacher replied. Freedom must be a big deal, Abe thought, as he listened to his sister recite the spelling list in the classroom. Abe wondered about freedom. Once when he'd put a cricket in a cage, it stopped moving and chirping. But when Abe let it go, it jumped quickly through the grass and started singing again. But people don't live in cages, thought Abe, so how could they not be free? Why would they need to fight for freedom? Abe remembered what Ma had said when he'd told her about the men. We must be good to soldiers. Now here was a real soldier coming toward him, a stranger. Cautious, Abe moved aside. "Hey there, boy," the soldier said, spreading his palms in front of him. "Don't be afeard, I mean no harm to you or your fine fish." Up close, Abe noticed the man's torn clothes, his worn out boots, and thought, "He's poor, like me." Abe saw too how the soldier looked at the fish. It was a hungry look. "We must be good to the soldiers," Ma had said. Abe remembered the Bible stories she had read to him at night, and one in particular about a good Samaritan who helped a poor man on the road when others passed by. Abe stared at his catch. He thought about how happy his family would be when they sat down to supper, a real fish supper, their first full meal in a week. Abe sniffed. He shuffled his feet. He looked again at the fish. A long minute passed. "Here," Abe said at last, lifting his fish toward the soldier. "I can catch me another, I reckon." A weary smile spread across the man's face. "Thank you kindly," he said, and started down the road again. "Hey, wait," Abe called after him. "Did you find freedom?" The soldier turned. He fixed his gaze on something far away. "I reckon I did see it sometimes," he finally replied, "but other times it seemed a long way off." He waved to Abe and walked on. The sun was low now, too low for Abe to go back to the creek and try to catch another fish. Ma would worry if he wasn't home by dark. At the cabin, Sarah's disappointment greeted him. "Didn't think you'd catch anything," she said. Abe looked down, shaking his head. "I caught a perch, but I gave it to a soldier on the road. He looked hungry." "Well, so are we. Did you think about that?" Sarah scolded. "Course I did," Abe snapped back. "I just reckoned he needed it more than us, that's all." Ma heard. She pulled another turnip off the shelf and sliced it into the steaming pot. "Go wash up, you two," she said, her voice firm but not angry. Abe was pretty sure that Ma would have given her fish to a hungry soldier. Pa came in looking weary from chopping and clearing. "Fish for supper?" he asked. Abe shook his head again. "Abe gave it away to a stranger," Sarah explained. "To a soldier," Abe corrected her. "He looked mighty hungry, Pa." Pa peered into Sarah's berry basket. He sneaked Abe a quick wink. "Then I reckon these will go fine with Ma's soup." Later that night, Abe gazed out the cabin's single window at the crescent moon lit up in a corner of the sky. "Looks like a fish hook," he thought, "or like the bend in the road where I first saw that soldier." Closing his eyes, Abe pictured the soldier by a campfire, cooking the fish and then drifting off to sleep with a full belly. Abe's own belly groaned. Turnips and berries had not been enough. Abe tried not to think about it. Instead, he whispered the words he'd learned to spell in school. D-O-G, dog. D-I-G, dig. D-I-S-H, dish. F-I-S-H, fish. Dang, that made his stomach growl again. With his finger, he wrote the words onto the slate of the night. F-O-G, fog. F-L-A-G, flag. Pa said that the flag stood for freedom, but what did freedom look like? Abe still couldn't quite picture it. Even the soldier hadn't seemed too sure. Freedom. He tried the word out in his mouth. It was a big word. Abe could tell the next time he went to school, he would practice writing on it. Someday, Abe thought, it might be a good word to know. So I'm going to record the author's note. It's kind of long, but it has a lot of really good information in it. And this is my second time trying to record, and it kept freezing. So I'm going to record the author's note in a second part. And it has lots of information that even I didn't know about Abe Lincoln in it. So it's really interesting. I think you'll like listening to it. So join me on the next part, part 2. The author's note. Thanks for joining me with this recording.